There's a strange silence that follows healing, a quiet no one warns you about. Because healing doesn't just make you feel better, it reveals who never really cared. You start saying no, and people vanish. You stop over-explaining yourself, and the phone goes quiet. You become honest, and the masks around you begin to crack. No, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just no longer useful to those who fed off your pain. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." So what happens when you begin facing yours? They leave. They resist, because your healing forces them to confront what they've buried. You didn't lose them, you just stopped abandoning yourself. And that was the only glue holding those relationships together. So, if people start fading away the moment you become more grounded, more conscious, more whole, it's not a curse, it's clarity. And that's exactly where we begin.
Here's what no one tells you about healing. It often feels like grief, not because you're broken, but because you start seeing clearly. And clarity doesn't always feel good. You begin to notice the subtle ways people used you, the passive-aggressive comments disguised as concern, the love that only showed up when you were easy to control, the loyalty that vanished the moment you had a boundary. You thought you were surrounded by love, but it was mostly need. Your pain gave them a role. Your self-doubt made you agreeable. Your silence made them comfortable. But when you started healing, when you started saying, "I don't accept this anymore," they began to disappear. Not because you changed too much, but because you finally stopped pretending. Carl Jung believed that true healing requires us to face the parts of ourselves we were taught to hide. And once you embrace those parts, you stop shrinking to fit into places that never deserved you. So if it feels like you're losing everyone, pause and look deeper. You're not losing people. You're losing illusions. And that is a sign of growth.
Let's be honest. Some of them didn't love you. They loved the version of you that said yes to everything. The version that laughed when it hurt, that stayed silent to keep the peace, that apologized just to end the tension. They weren't drawn to your soul. They were addicted to your submission. But then you began to change. You started speaking up, asking questions, walking away from what didn't feel right. And that made them uncomfortable because your growth removed their power. And some people only feel safe when you feel small. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we suppress, reject, or project onto others. When you stop playing small, you force others to meet their own shadow, and most will run from that mirror. But you didn't come this far to keep shrinking. You didn't do all this healing just to be liked by people who only loved your wounds. If this message is speaking to something deep inside you, if you feel like you're finally waking up to the truth, this space is for you. Subscribe to Slow Psychology, and let's keep walking this road of healing, clarity, and self-respect together. Because you're not alone, and you're not crazy. You're just finally choosing yourself.
At first, it feels like abandonment, like everyone walked out when you needed them most. But if you listen closely, that silence isn't emptiness. It's peace. It's your nervous system finally catching a break. No more pretending, no more walking on eggshells, no more holding your breath around people who only loved the mask. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that matter most." And when you were surrounded by fake support, you felt alone even in a crowded room. Now that you've stepped away from the noise, you begin to feel something new. Strange at first, but real. Stillness, presence, self-trust. Yes, the room is quieter, but your mind is no longer at war with itself. That's not loneliness. That's freedom in disguise. So don't rush to fill the space others left. Let it breathe. Let it show you what's real. Because the next chapter of your life begins not with more people, but with more truth.
Healing isn't just about what you say or do. It's about how you feel, how you vibrate, how your presence shifts the room without a single word. Before, your energy said, "I'll shrink if that keeps you comfortable. I'll carry what's not mine if it keeps the peace." Now, your energy says, "I trust myself. I choose peace over approval. I no longer abandon myself to belong." And that subtle shift, it changes everything. Some people will feel drawn to you like a magnet, not because you're trying harder, but because you're more honest, while others will slowly pull away, not because you hurt them, but because you stopped dimming your light to match their darkness. Carl Jung believed that when you integrate the parts of yourself you once rejected, you become more whole. And wholeness has a frequency that makes fragmented people uncomfortable. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to fix it. Just observe it. When you heal, your energy becomes a filter. The fake, the draining, the manipulative, they simply can't breathe in your presence anymore. And that's not rejection. That's protection.
You were taught to believe that love means keeping everyone happy, that being liked is a form of safety, that belonging is worth any sacrifice, even your truth. But here's the turning point. If you have to hide parts of yourself to be loved, that love isn't for you. It's for your performance. And slowly, that realization breaks the spell. Carl Jung warned us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that privilege comes with a price. And the price is this: you will be misunderstood. You will be called selfish, distant, arrogant, not because you are, but because people can no longer control the version of you they preferred. You're not cold. You're just not lying anymore. The day you stop seeking approval is the day you begin living. The day you say, "This is who I am, take it or leave it," is the day your soul breathes for the first time. And yes, people will leave. But the ones who stay, they'll see you, truly see you. And you'll realize you never needed everyone, just the ones who recognize your truth without needing you to shrink.
There's a moment in every healing journey when you realize you can't go back. Not because you're angry, not because you hate them, but because your soul has changed shape and it no longer fits where you once belonged. This is what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, beneath the roles, the masks, the conditioning. But individuation comes at a cost. You lose the tribe that only accepted the version of you that stayed small. You lose the comfort of fitting in. You even lose the illusion that love always means loyalty. And yet, in this painful unraveling, you begin to meet yourself for the first time. You realize that not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next chapter. Some people only exist in your story to show you the parts of yourself you had to reclaim. And once that lesson is integrated, the connection fades. It's not failure, it's transformation. So, if you feel like you're outgrowing everything, your relationships, your habits, your past self, don't panic. You're not falling apart. You're shedding. And what's waiting underneath is someone real, grounded, and finally, free.
After the chaos fades, after the noise, the drama, the emotional acrobatics, there's silence. And at first, it feels like emptiness. But slowly, you begin to feel something else beneath it. Something you didn't even know you were missing. Authenticity. Because when you stop performing, you create space for what's real to arrive. Not rushed, not forced, but quietly drawn to the frequency of your truth. Carl Jung taught that wholeness doesn't come from fixing the broken pieces. It comes from integrating them, honoring all that you are, even the parts you were told to hide. And when you finally do that, you stop attracting people who need you to be less. You stop entertaining those who only love your wounds. Instead, you start calling in people who see your wholeness and don't flinch. People who value your silence as much as your words, who aren't threatened by your boundaries, who don't need you to shrink to feel powerful. But here's the paradox. That level of connection only shows up after you've spent time alone, after you've let go of what was never aligned. So, if you're in a season of stillness, trust it. You're not being punished. You're being prepared.
There comes a moment when you stop searching for permission, when you realize that no one owes you understanding, when you accept that the only approval that matters is your own. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's revolutionary. It means waking up every day and deciding to honor your pain, your truth, your growth, even when it scares people away. Carl Jung believed that the journey inward is the most courageous path anyone can take, because it means facing your shadows, your fears, your deepest wounds, and choosing to love yourself through all of it. This choice shakes the foundations of your world. It breaks old patterns. It dissolves toxic attachments.
And the strange thing, the moment you become unapologetically you, the right people start finding you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. So if healing has cost you relationships, comfort, and certainty, remember this: you didn't lose people. You gained yourself. Healing is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you live without apology, without fear, without the need to fit inside someone else's expectations. You've shed what no longer serves you. You've faced your shadows. You've chosen yourself. And that choice gives you something priceless: freedom. Freedom to speak your truth. Freedom to feel deeply. Freedom to build connections that honor who you really are. Carl Jung taught us that the journey to wholeness is messy and lonely, but it's also the path to true belonging. Not belonging to the crowd, but belonging to yourself. So, as fake people disappear, remember this: they are making space for your real tribe, for your real peace, for your real life. This is your time. Your healing is your power, and you are finally free.